Tonight, we begin with development that federal authorities, intelligence analysts, and law enforcement insiders had tracked, feared, and prepared for. A raid that unfolded not over months, but in a single morning. A single morning that dismantled a billion-dollar criminal network. A single morning that exposed an international trafficking pipeline. A single morning that sent shockwaves through Los Angeles and beyond. What federal investigators uncovered today crossed a line that U.S. authorities had hoped would never be breached on American soil. And when that line broke, federal agents did not hesitate. They responded with precision, coordination, and overwhelming speed for months now. There have been signals, not official announcements, not public warnings, just quiet signals, that a powerful trafficking network was expanding its footprint inside the United States. This organization had been discreet, yes, but had also been bold in its discretion. Its operations followed a certain rhythm, a pattern, almost a signature. Money moved in waves. Properties were acquired through layers of shell companies. Logistics routes shifted just before scrutiny could land. But what set off alarm bells inside federal task forces this winter was that the pattern suddenly went silent. Experts who monitor international trafficking indicators know the warning signs. The drop in routine financial transfers. The sudden closure of previously active business fronts. The disappearance of known intermediaries. The abrupt halt in encrypted communication traffic. All of that went quiet. And whenever a network like this goes quiet, it means something is about to get loud. Early this morning, federal surveillance teams detected what they described as coordinated movement patterns around a luxury estate in Los Angeles. Vehicles associated with multiple shell companies arrived within minutes of each other. Communications devices previously dormant suddenly pinged foreign networks. Digital traffic spiked in ways investigators had not seen in over a year. These are the kind of operational shifts criminal networks only deploy when they are signaling something very specific. A transfer, a consolidation, or an escape. Observers didn't yet know which category this fell into, or whether it was all three at once. But what they did know was that the organization was changing its operational posture. And when a transnational trafficking network shifts posture, without explanation, even slightly, federal authorities pay attention. The federal response today was not routine. It was not symbolic. It was urgent. Sources familiar with interagency briefings describe the network's movements as coordinated, accelerated, and most importantly, transitional, meaning assets were about to be moved beyond reach. But disruption strategies only work if the target hesitates. Federal agents did not. In fact, today's operation was among the fastest coordinated federal raids seen in Southern California in recent years. Here's what we know. Within hours of detecting the activity spike, FBI and IC task force units mobilized. These were not standard field teams. These were specialized federal units trained to dismantle trafficking infrastructure, teams that are only deployed when authorities believe critical evidence, victims, or financial assets are at immediate risk. Tonight, officials confirmed that federal agents executed multiple simultaneous warrants tied to the same trafficking investigation. The primary target, a fortified luxury mansion investigators believe functioned as a financial and logistical hub for a trafficking enterprise valued at an estimated $1.9 billion. Agents secured the perimeter before suspects could destroy evidence. They hit financial servers. They hit document storage rooms. They hit secure communication centers that were likely preparing to go dark. In other words, they targeted the operational core, the components that would have allowed the network to survive. This is what made the response so urgent. The group's activity wasn't just suspicious. It was actionable. It represented the kind of transition that could have erased trails, hidden money, and endangered lives if left unchecked. And federal authorities, understanding that fully, responded with force. Not recklessly, not impulsively, but strategically. They didn't waste resources on empty properties. They didn't chase low-level fronts. They hit the infrastructure. They hit the command points. And here's where the story becomes even more intense. Investigators now believe the network's sudden shift was a test, a probe of how quickly U.S. enforcement could respond after months of quiet expansion. They wanted to see whether authorities would miss the signal. Instead, the opposite happened. Federal agencies didn't hesitate. They launched a coordinated response that was so rapid, so synchronized, that even veteran investigators say it surprised the suspects. You don't get the attention of top-tier trafficking networks easily. But today, federal authorities did. Analysts described the group's strategy as consolidation, an attempt to centralize assets before moving them offshore. But today's operation proved authorities remained both vigilant and capable. Their actions were not only decisive, they were precise enough that critical digital records were reportedly captured before they could be erased. That matters because it shows foresight. It shows federal agencies are not reacting late. They are acting early as reports continued throughout the day. More details emerge about the scale of the operation. Financial crimes units executed asset seizure warrants, freezing accounts linked to international transfers. Homeland Security investigators targeted logistics networks believed to have moved victims and illicit goods. Cybercrime specialists operating remotely reportedly secured encrypted servers used to coordinate overseas operations. This wasn't just a property raid. This wasn't just an arrest sweep. This was infrastructure disruption. This was network dismantling. And dismantling is the one thing transnational trafficking groups struggle to recover from once core assets are seized. Remember, networks like this often assume they can hide behind shell corporations. They can outpace investigators with global movement. They can dissolve before authorities close in. But tonight, the opposite is happening. Records were captured. Assets were frozen. Operations were interrupted mid-transition. What makes this moment so critical and so volatile is that this crackdown comes during a period of intense pressure on federal agencies to combat human trafficking and financial crime simultaneously. Lawmakers want tougher enforcement. Communities want safer neighborhoods. Advocates want victims protected. Financial regulators want illicit money flows stopped. And leaders balancing these demands, no delays can cost lives. When agencies move this fast, it's not from comfort. It's from urgency that in a brief statement distributed this afternoon, federal officials emphasized that today's operation targeted alleged criminal actors, not communities, not nationalities, not neighborhoods. Officials said the network's actions were inconsistent with international law and U.S. criminal statutes. That is diplomatic language for this operation crossed major legal lines. You don't hear that tone unless the stakes are high. Meanwhile, a senior federal official addressed reporters in a firm, measured statement tonight. We will not allow trafficking networks to establish operational hubs in our communities. We will follow the money, we will follow the logistics, and we will follow the evidence wherever it leads. And we will continue working with international partners to dismantle these networks at every level. These were not sound bites. They were commitments. Investigators say today's raid was not isolated, along with the primary target. Additional financial facilitators are under investigation. Overseas partners are being tracked. Logistics routes are being mapped for future action. All of this happened within the same operational window. When networks move multiple pieces at once, it signals expansion. When authorities respond at multiple levels at once, it signals containment. Analysts now see several possibilities. One is that the network was preparing a major asset transfer. Another is that it was attempting to relocate operations. A third, the most concerning, is that it was preparing to disappear entirely. But today, authorities removed that option. They didn't delay. They didn't observe. They acted. What we are watching now is a test of enforcement resilience. Criminal networks want to see gaps. Authorities want to show reach. International partners want to prevent displacement. Communities want protection. Sources say investigators are now analyzing seized digital records. They say financial trails are already leading beyond U.S. borders. And they say today's activity was likely part of a broader strategy to consolidate and move operations. But federal agencies are not backing off. In fact, today's response, coordinated, rapid, and intelligence-driven, sent a message that disruption can happen at any stage as this investigation continues. More details will emerge about what this network intended. But what we do know is that today's action was timely. It prevented asset flight. It preserved evidence. And it potentially protected victims. What happens next will depend on how remaining network elements respond. If they retreat, this moment will be remembered as a turning point. If they attempt to regroup, authorities have shown they are ready. And tonight, for the first time in months, this network is quiet, too quiet. And when major operations go quiet, it means decisions are being made, moves are being weighed. Because tonight, this organization learned something. Its operations are visible, its money can be traced, and its infrastructure can be dismantled. This story is far from over. But tonight, one thing is clear. The crackdown has begun. The network has been exposed. And the world is watching what happens next.